It's been a very impressive morning learning about how you've changed Bolivia, how your international profile has changed. Your sense has shot up, and as a president, you've had stricken a balance between social policy and also very sound and disciplined economic policy. But now maybe we're facing new times. The commodity bonanzas have fallen off. The companies that produce commodities are passing from being fat cows to skinny cows. How are you going to maintain this balance between social policy and financial prudence in the toughest years to come? I would say, let's see. When we got to office, when we entered office, let's say petroleum sales, millions of dollars in petroleum sales, and thanks to infighting and strikes, we've created paths challenging the neoliberal model with something called a CH, $140 million. This year, profits from sales are going to be $350 million from petroleum sales, from 300 or 600 to more than $3.3 billion. That's the guarantee of our national economy, how we've grown. We've lost so much money with the neoliberal model. A lot of money was lost. For now, evidently, the Bolivian economy is dependent on gas, on exports. We're looking to the added value of gas. We established a new well, thousands of cubic meters per day that's going to be incorporated in the coming years. In the new months, there will be more developments. So on one end, investment allows greater production without taking into account the prices of petroleum. Clearly, there was an effect by world oil prices, but it's still helping grow the economy. The municipality with 5 councilmen, for this price of oil, the transference is going to be no more than 2 million or 1 million Bolivian pesos. And you know that we've instituted a program called Bolivia Changes. Just like this, we've reduced a reduction in transfers from large to medium-sized investments. Now seeing about these thermoelectric plants. During our term, we've installed 3 thermoelectric plants in Cochabamba, Tarija, and Santa Cruz, putting out 100, 180, and 120 megawatts. Let's see, that's 460 plus 400, around, how much would that be? Like 1.2, 1.3 billion dollars in investments. Those investments create economic momentum for the region. So, almost, well, not at all, but I want to say that in 2005, 2006, with such a crisis, with such a deficit, our first financial situation in 2008, I don't know if it's the fault of the President of the United States, but the financial crisis, right? 2008, 2009, it affected us directly through Brazil. Lula's government didn't buy much gas. That didn't affect us too much. We hadn't have a problem balancing it with other investments. So with these investments, thanks to this financial cushion for this economic investment, we're not in fear, but yeah, what I learned, I'm not an expert in financial matters and investments, but I did learn that. How to guarantee more and more investments of small, medium, and larger scopes. I want to say that this investment to convert gas into electricity, because the sale of electricity gives us more than selling gas itself. That's what we've learned. That's what we're doing by converting gas to energy to export. Thank you. And where's this investment going to come from? Because we've heard very, very large sums of $48 million.
Okay, fantastic.
What kind of investments will there be? Where will it come from? And what kind of incentives are going to be offered to investors or partners, as you call them?
Yes.
Well, from what's been approved, investment has been guaranteed. I don't want to deceive you. I don't want to lie to you. If there's any company conspiring, of course, we have all our rights to stand up for democracy in Bolivia. So, investments, first of all, if we didn't have too many reserves, but we've begun spending them, but our reserves are going to be mainly spent on production projects. In terms of infrastructure, of course, with the Treasury or with International Treasury, but that's Treasury. Who pays the credit? It's the Treasury of the nation. And I've come into agreement with some partners down to the municipal level for rural projects as well. Okay. What consider as your challenge the greatest obstacle that you face or that the country faces for the next 4 years? To eradicate poverty, I wouldn't like to see kids like Evo with no electricity, no water, poor education. Most important is how to see to the most abandoned sectors, the most abandoned ones in the history of Bolivia. And this reduction in poverty really pushes us forth. We've freed 2 million Bolivians. Those are citizens that ascended to the middle class, and these projects are going to continue. And with the cooperation of the World Bank, for instance, that gives us credit that the state pays off. But what is the credit? What do we do? What does the national government do with that credit? Production projects. 70-80% are donations, and there's 30% from these for these production projects, and that's how we find the way forward for the country to be productive within 4 families. We've made strides in education. We're taking on the issue of healthcare. There's going to be investment, $1.6 billion in healthcare investment until 2017. Bolivia is making these investments for the first time. And four-level hospitals, we're seeing it for the first time. It's very difficult. We're working through it technically. It's not so much about money. It's about there being results. Maybe you can explain a little. The problem isn't so much money, but the problem is the results. For instance, I don't have much experience with 4-level hospitals. My aspiration is that Bolivians go to Chile, to Argentina, to Brazil, or to the United States to really train themselves on healthcare, to learn from there, or for neighboring countries to come visit us. We have an agreement with our Cuban brothers. We start with a mission to have Bolivians operated on their vision. And Peruvian brothers would come to get treated for their eye vision for free at Copacabana in the Department of La Paz. Peruvians would come, and you see, that's what I would like to see. Since I don't have experience with 4-level hospitals, it's an internal debate. That's our biggest problem, to be able to take off quickly. But we will take off, and there are some experts, I think Italians, Spaniards, that are helping us on the technical part. And with their experience, we can really set up those 4-level hospitals. Hospitals in other cities, it's not too much of a problem. But like I said, 4-stage hospitals, like I've said, Bolivians aren't very experienced in the medical healthcare sector. That's our problem. Now, the role of the state in Bolivia. You've just spoken of neoliberal politics and about your Cuban brothers, but even Raul Castro has said that socialism doesn't work. This kind of discourse coming out of Havana Has that changed how your ideas about how an economy works or should work as Bolivia's? I think it's the first country in healthcare in the world, despite the economic blockade in medicine and healthcare. Although I'm hoping this economic blockade is really lifted. Cuba would be a model country for before the whole world were it lifted. And I think I recall in 2003, yes, in 2003, I had a long meeting with Fidel. I wanted to hear from Fidel about where we have to buy weapons, how we have to conduct guerrilla warfare for a revolution. His conference began at 6 p.m., ending at 2 in the morning. At 2 in the morning, he took me to eat. We went out to eat, just the two of us. He talked to me about healthcare education. I thought, when's he going to start talking to me about revolution? I've heard of revolution. And like I said, I was wondering, where's he going to help me acquire weapons? Where must I buy the bullets for my revolution? No, nothing, none of that. All healthcare and education. And finally, at 6, I had to go by 6, 7 in the morning, I asked him, Fidel, how, from where do we make a revolution? He looks at me and he says, Evo, you have to do what Chavez is doing. Revolutions happen democratically, with a vote. I waited almost 24 hours in vain, or 12 hours, waiting to learn where I'd get the weapons. And then I remember when I was blocking roads, striking to change policies for the coca leaf, for human rights. And I remember being told I'd rather sleep with the rock by my there than the rock by my door. I understood the message when we were conducting strikes for a week, 2 weeks. So what do I mean to say? What I mean is how to resolve social issues to avoid social conflict. I think that's what we did. Now we talk of the new Bolivia. What did we do to make this new Bolivia? Politically, the re-foundation of Bolivia. Politically, the rule of human rights. And then in 2005, 2006, I found a state with no classes, an appearance of a state with representatives who are imposters. So we redid our foundation. With the Evo Bolivia, it's the social movements that reign, as opposed to capitalist models, where the ones who rule are the bankers, the business leaders. There, the Bolivian people and social movements rule. Here in the United States, they're trying to destroy social movements. There, we need to strengthen social movements. We have differences, of course, right? And part of that is business leaders, all social sectors, meetings, for important matters. Now, I've created a social cabinet that every first Tuesday of the month, we have a meeting. I feel discrimination from bankers. No, excuse me, not bankers. The business leaders, not bankers. That's how we make the country progress. Let's see, economically, Intel, Italians were owners. We nationalized it. We haven't talked much about it. Really usable profitability was $70-80 million per year. So 70-80 million went to Italy. We nationalized it. It's grown. It's grown. Utility must be at $110-120 million net utility. $120 million that stays in Bolivia. And that's put through bonds. That's the democratization of the national economy. The drop of oil prices, I feel that some countries are now cutting social services or work provisions. We're not doing that in Bolivia. In fact, we've created a new bond for a subsidy for universal rights, right? We continue creating bonds, and that's the strength behind our system. So I want you to understand this. This refoundation of Bolivia has been so important. and the democratization of the economy that has worked, but also recovering our natural resources. If companies like Repsol haven't fled, they would tell us falsely. When I was a union leader, I would propose to them, we want to nationalize. They would say no. If there's nationalization, then there won't be an investment in hydrocarbons. How much was investment in 2005? $240 million. $240 million. By this year, what are we looking at? $2.5 billion. Investment has grown tenfold. That's what I mean. Neoliberal model is sacking and looting, and almost none left for Bolivia. And it would stay with some bank or some company that would snatch it all up. It wasn't democratized. Now it comes back. It comes back to the Bolivian people. In terms of the Financial Times position, in terms of the Cuban blockade, the Financial Times has maintained that it's a bad idea, that the U.S. should lift the embargo. Well, but that's another matter. Well, congratulations. I hope they listen to you then. It's been said in English that plants don't grow under the shadow of a tree that's too great. You've been president for 9 years now, and you will be president for 4 more years. And besides, there's the possibility of you gaining another presidential term in 2019. Do you have any fear of the great tree of Bolivia, because of this great tree, for plants not to be able to grow in its shadow? And I'm talking in financial terms, small businesses, and also politically. I remember the saying, politics isn't business, it's benefiting. I remember in meetings, ministers right now are all together. If ministers wanted to do their business, they would do even better. I think the Minister of Hydrocarbons, he came to the U.S. and he was offered 20 months salary as a bonus. My other ministers, how much? $15,000 salary they offered him. Here, being an authority is being with the country. It's not about squashing anyone. I know, look, I'll tell you. With the My Water program, financing water, and the great success of Potosí, when I've been invited to initiate an irrigation project. Well, it's a medium-sized project. It's not so great, not so little, but I wanted to see the company that builds it. All suit and ties. You know what the tie does? You know what the tie does? It keeps all the thoughts in your head and doesn't let them out. That's why I don't wear a tie. So I say, where's the businessman who installed this irrigation system? And the colleague from the countryside comes with his little cholito, and I'm surprised. And I ask him, what's about this irrigation? And he says, no, I'm just country folk. I set up my company, I hired an engineer, and he's happy as can be. Imagine, small companies, ex-directors, ex-mayors organize themselves to create companies like this, even though they're small, medium-sized businesses. So we give them an opportunity to continue growing. And politically, everyone has a right to grow. Everyone's got a right to grow, even to the level of the big tree. That's defined by the people. That's not defined by the president or a political party. It's defined by the people with their vote. What's most democratic is to submit to referendum. I was just mentioning, I don't want you to think that I doubt your defense of Cuba, but I want to tell you, before in Bolivia, there were parties that had governed with 20% or 30, no more than 30% of the vote. In 2002, when I assumed my candidacy for the presidency for the first time, 5 parties recognized by the Electoral Code beat me by less than 1%. And they were more than 20%. They were 21%. We were 20, they were 21%. They beat us by 0.9%, not even 1%. And well, there have been so many alliances that have governed, and those governments haven't lasted. I won with 54%. 55. To me, that's definitive. Those who have reigned 20, 30%, there's no vote. There's no vote to impeach me. And for me, there was a vote for impeachment. And yet, I was supported by 67% of the populace. That's without any campaign. And it's my experience. When I was a union leader, I mobilized with unions, everything to defend the people's rights. And the people recognize a leader that recognizes their rights. Were I not of the people, I would have been set aside politically in all ways. I would have been, how many assassination attempts have we survived? Dirty campaigns saying that I was a terrorist, a peasant. Look, Manuel Rocha in this U.S. newspaper, what was written in 2002? The coca producers were called Talibans. Those are accusations. But the people united have defended me. This so-called bin Laden and this so-called terrorists are now president and protect the people. That's the people united behind democratic principles.
They won a referendum. It wasn't under the Constitution, and they say the attorney said that what is under the Constitution, without being in the Constitution, I made a referendum and I won. And now it's under the Constitution. The people have requested to do referendums, and I said yes, so let's do it. But this is the last question. If there is a referendum, and there's a referendum, we're going to start a new electoral campaign. Do you think it's a great idea to be president of a country, in a country that there's always a danger of continuing presidencies? Do you think it's good to be president for almost 20 years? Why don't we review here in the United States, in other continents, presidents that lasted a long time, saved their country and guarantee development? I don't want to show you data. You know very well as a researcher, as a journalist, and what is happening in Bolivia. What's happening in Bolivia is that there's a solid economics, there's a solid politics, and why? Because it's associated to, because it is solving the social problems. If there's injustice, a social problem, the people will raise against it in Bolivia. Some unions, colleagues are very proud that one of the union, the leader is now the president. And secondly, that the people's requests and demands are being paying attention, and that's why there is a political and economic development in growth. This is the collaborative work. Some people may say that I really actually don't feel like president. I feel like a coordinator of this process. And then after, I'm going to be reviewing, also checking to see if how other countries have can come into stability after the world wars, and in president that has been guarantee stability, political and economic. When I was a soldier in '78, I felt there were 3 presidents that year. I went in when it was Banzer, there was a coup d'etat, General Pereira Sur, and then there was another one for Araciba. But between Banzer and Araciba, there were 3 generals as president. That year there were 6 presidents. The history tells you that in '74 there were 3 presidents. What political stability can you have like this? Before I came to the presidency, before this democratic revolution and cultural revolution, In the last 5 years, there were 5 presidents. Banzer, you know, the Banzer has cancer, and thanks to that cancer, we have a 2 top president. And then 2004, Carlos Mesa, 2005, 2006, 2006, Azuro. Every year a new president. What are you gonna plan and execute like that? Please, my colleague, this is, you are wrong by questioning my candidacy. You should do campaign in Bolivia. This is the history. The important is not to lie and to steal. And I say to my ministers and the private the sector, we have a micro corruption, but the minister that have been installed money, that doesn't happen. It's hard to fight against it, and I'm very happy because really the people are so wise, and on top of that, not only have recovered our principles, also the values. I remember the Masua Mayuya Bakera, not steal, don't lie, don't be lazy. No one can say that Evo is lying, is stealing. They don't, because I come from an Indian movement from the so they change our technical terms that I use sometimes because I'm not a technical, but they do this. But I brought a lot of results to Bolivia, and I want to say that we are surprised that the social movement called Momancan have proposed a constitutional reform to propose a new election. It's not my idea. It's not Evo's idea. I went to Orinoco, to Chapal, to Cochabamba as a leader and as a president, but the values that I received from my father, my parents, are very important in life, and the principles, ideological principles that come from our ancestors are recovered by a social movement, and they're coming with us, and I feel like we're very good, because never, you can check Bolivia history, it never had happened before. Now those big investment in the oil, in power, you can't imagine. I can bet with you that the boom are going to start with you, but without you, it's going to start in 2019 until 2025, because investment, take 4, 5, 6 years with the powerhouses. We have planned, because we have a patriotic agenda, the 2025. Big investment in all sectors, and the new sector is going to have more, going to generate more money, is going to be energy, and we're going to have an agreement with Brazil to guarantee the market, and this is what we're going to do. So, Mr. President, sadly, time has come to an end, and the boom from your presidency is very good. Thank you so much for coming here to speak with the professional here. So now you're convinced. Please help me to do campaign for Evo. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.